Bear Country School is having a talent show. Any student can be in the show. All you need is a talent. Welcome back to Deep in Bear Country, a Berenstain Bearcast. I don't know why I did my hands like that. Welcome back to Deep in Bear Country, a Berenstain Bearcast. I am your host, Phil Gonzalez, and this week we are dipping back. We are dipping our toes, our toesy-woesies, our cute little footsy-wootsies, back into the dark waters of the Berenstain Bears talent shows. Now, as you know, we have covered talent shows on this show several times. I think most recently was in 2019, we did the Berenstain Bears talent show. I think it was just called that, the Berenstain Bears talent show. And that was a complex story that involved characters behaving in ways we hadn't seen them behave before, which saw characters accepting positions they weren't initially comfortable with, and which taught us the valuable lesson of the value of the backstage people when it comes to performing, with the value of stage managers, the value of talent scouts, the value of just all the kinds of things that you don't typically think of when you think of the performing arts, or that people outside of the performing arts don't typically think of when they doesn't matter. We covered all of that. A brief rundown of the original talent show story. The Bear Country School was having a talent show. Brother Bear gets asked to be the talent scout for the show, and it's basically just him going around meeting the Cubs and finding out what their talents are. We had magicians, we had card tricks, we had acrobats, we had ballet dancing, we had patting your head and rubbing your tummy, but the big breakout star of the show ended up being Too Tall, who showed that he was a talented singer. He sang a song that brought down the house. He was awarded the first place prize, which I guess was a thing at the talent show. I didn't know that it was a talent contest, but it was a talent contest. And then Brother ends up getting special recognition at the end for being the talent scout and making the whole thing come together. He gets a round of applause. And it's a very cool lesson of like recognition for the people who don't get up on stage and perform, but are just as important for the final outcome of the show as the people who are on the stage. It was a nice little story. I really liked it. It was a Cub Club book published back in the 90s. There was an episode of the 2000s TV series that was based on it. I don't believe I ever covered that one. Maybe I'll go back and cover it at some point. And it was loosely based on the original Cub Club. Since then, we've had numerous stories where the Cubs show off their talents, including getting to see Too Tall and his gang be rap stars, which was quite a thing. We also saw them do like musical performances in one of the chapter books. The Cubs are talented, and we know for a fact that Brother Bear is talented as well. He has talents, even though in the original talent show book, he swore he didn't have any talents, but I think he was just selling himself short. Well, come to find out, we are not done with the concept of the Cubs. Did I freeze? I think I just froze. In any case, this week's book is an I Can Read book from 2020. So it actually came out after I did the original episode on the talent show. And this is called the Berenstain Bears School Talent Show. It is a beginning level 1 reader, an I Can Read book by Mike Berenstain, like I said, from 2020, that does not tell the same story as the Cub Club book. It's not a retelling, it's not a reissuing. If I remember correctly, the Cub Club book was not illustrated by Stan or Jan. It was illustrated by a freelancer. It was beautifully illustrated, but it had that sort of like thick, heavy lines and slightly off-model look of the bears. This is definitely a Mike Berenstain book, and I can see why he was like, I'm going to go back, going to simplify things. We're not going to have as complex a story, but we are going to make a point in this book. And what is the point? Like, what are we looking at here? Why and wherefore? What's going on in the Berenstain Bears School Talent Show? Well, I mean, I don't actually know. No, I'm kidding. Let's find out. Shall we? The Berenstain Bears, the School Talent Show. And don't worry, there will be a history lesson in this one. Sort of a fascinating history lesson at that goes into like indigenous people in Africa developing an art form based on a American art form that was based on an Alpine art form. It's very interesting. Trust me, it's very interesting. But the Berenstain Bears School Talent Show, Also, I don't believe that I will cut out in this episode because I think, I could be wrong, but I think I figured that problem out. So, what do we know about this story? Well, we know that Miss Teacher Jane is in charge of this talent show, as opposed to in the previous book, it was like what was her name? It was like Miss Stevens or like Miss Smith or something. It was this random bear teacher we had never heard of before who recruited Brother. Well, this is a talent show or tryouts. Sign up with Teacher Jane. All you gotta have is a talent. Oh, also, this book does not rhyme. The previous book, it rhymed. This book, no rhymes to be found, which is fine. We don't need rhymes. We're smarter than that. We don't need our hands held narratively and lyrically through the book this time. We are fine with a prose story. Teacher Jane's in charge. She's choosing the acts. Brother, not involved in this one. I mean, he is involved, but he is not part of the talent show. I mean, he is, but he is not, never mind. He's not the recruiter. That's Teacher Jane. We have, again, simplified the story. The kids are showing off their talents. Hey, look, there's a magic act. Check. First of all, in the original talent show book, there was a rabbit out of the hat trick. Let's go back also. I love the way Mike has drawn this rabbit. This is a quintessential Mike cartoon rabbit. He's gone full like UAP. Was it UA? Is it UAP? The animation studio from the 60s that did Gerald McBoing Boing? I can't remember. This rabbit looks awesome. Mike, kudos to your cartoon rabbit. Kudos to your cub. It looks like it's not Lizzie, it's another one of the cool cubs. Queenie? I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself. In the original story, there was a rabbit out of the hat trick like this, except it was two rabbits out of a hat. I'm not saying this trick is worse or better for being one rabbit. It's more focused. It's more streamlined, like this book. I'm just saying that the original one had two rabbits. And it says there's a rap group. Check. And we see Too Tall. We see Vinny Scuzz, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't really say. Doing a rap act. And they're doing a rap pose of sorts. Like, Too Tall has his eyes closed and he's pointing up in the air with his hand over his heart. Very, very emotional. And Vinny is like doing like almost a dab, but not quite. And then Scuzz or Smirk, whichever one it is like sort of holding their shirt and like they all have their eyes closed is what I'm saying. So remember that, young people. Rap equals closed eyes. If you're really into it, if you mean it, your eyes will be closed. You'll be lost in the zone. You'll be lost in the sauce, the rap sauce. You'll be pouring out a bowl of rap sauce over your rap cornflakes and spooning up the rap music into your eager rap mouth. Rap sauce. Also, the checkboard at the bottom, the teacher, Jane, is writing out the talent. It says talent show, and she has like a little clipboard. And in first one, she wrote magic, check. Like, we have our magic now. We don't need any more magic. Well, if a student showed up with like actual magic powers, sorry, we got our magic trick. One rabbit, one hat. Underneath, she wrote rap, check that off. But it's funny. You could be magic rap. The way it's written, there's no like delineation between like, it's just like, I would see a show with magic rap. Some would say that that the appearance on Broadway of rap shows is a magic in its own way. Magic rap. I disagree. One cub does a tap dance. Phenomenal. We don't know who this cub is. All I know is that the taps on his shoes are about an inch thick. This is going to destroy the dance floor. I hope that they've rolled out an actual dance floor for this performance. Otherwise, the flooring on the stage is going to get wrecked by these literally inch-thick taps on the bottom of this cub's tap shoes. Don't know where this cub got these shoes. Seem somewhat bootleg, because of the fact that they are literally an inch-thick metal taps. One cub can wiggle his ears. It could be Barry Bruin. They don't say who these cubs are. No names are given at this point. There's a cub wiggling his ears. I believe Barry Bruin wiggled his ears in the original book. So this could be Barry. Not much of a what's funny, okay, so it says another cub wiggles his ear. Great, fine, wonderful, great. Every talent counts. Next comes Cousin Fred. It says Cousin Fred rubs his tummy and pats his head. It isn't much of a talent, but he's very good at it. Hey, Mike, I don't know if you know this, but the page previous, a cub just wiggled his ears. Like, literally, like, maybe I can figure out, if you're watching along at home, I'm going to wiggle my ears. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull this off. Hold on. Quiet. Be quiet. I need concentration. Here we go. Huh? Am I doing it? I think my ears are wiggling. I think I'm doing it correctly. If you're watching along at home, I believe I do have to close my eyes like I'm some kind of rap star, wiggling my ears. But yeah, I think I'm pulling it off. If you're watching on YouTube, you can watch me wiggle my ears. I'm gonna check the camera just to make sure I'm actually doing it. So maybe I'll do this. Okay. So to make sure I'm actually doing it, here's a close up of me. Huh? It looks more like I'm wiggling my forehead. I can move my ears. Look at that. See? The forehead moves a lot too with it. So if I did this, I'm trying my hardest, people. I'm trying my hardest. This is what I'm giving you. This is what I'm giving you. So, okay. So one cub can tap dance. One can wiggle his ears. Great, I guess. Now here's what's interesting. So in the last book, Cousin Fred did have a talent, and it was balance. He could balance a pole on his nose, a juggling trick, but it's he would balance a pole on his nose. Also, a fine talent. We've demoted him now to being the cub who pats his head and rubs his tummy. There was a cub in the previous book who did that, but it wasn't like derided. It wasn't like I'm fine. You can be in the show. No, it was just that was another one of the talents. I don't know why Mike has suddenly taken a hard stance against patting your head and rubbing your tummy. I can do that too. The secret is to start rubbing your tummy before you pat your head. If you start off patting your head, well, no, I guess that's easy too. Come to find out, it's actually a pretty easy thing to do. But then Brother shows up. Now in the last book, of course, Brother was untalented. In this book, Brother is on drums. Phenomenal. Like he's just like ba ba da bop bop ba doom dop dang, ba ba da ding dong bong bong bong. He's playing those drums and he's really into it. He plays very loud. Sister then goes up and sings. She sings loud too. Now, along the bottom of the page spreads, 2-page spread, we see a bunch of cubs holding their ears and like screaming and groaning. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing that these cubs are doing. I'm going to assume that it's actually in reference to the fact that we know from a fact that Sister can't sing. In, I think, the book He Bear, She Bear, where they're trying to choose jobs, figure out what jobs they want to do in the future, Sister's like, maybe I could be a singer. And she sings, and it's like all broken notes, and Brother's like, don't quit your day job. I'm assuming this is in reference to Sister's terrible singing, which we have established is canonically a thing. I don't know much about Brother's drumming. In the book where they had a talent, the chapter book where they all formed bands, I don't remember if Brother was on drums or not. I think he was in the Smashing Pumpkins band. I could be wrong. I could be mistaken, but I don't remember if he was the drummer. However, he's a drummer now. Good on you, Brother, and good on you, Sister, for getting up there and singing your heart out once again. Barry's up next. Okay, so the ear-wiggling bear was not Barry. This time Barry is a dog trainer. He's got stupid pet tricks. His dog is up there. It's not Scruff. I can't remember the name of this dog, but it's Barry's dog. We've seen these in the pet show, but the Run Amok dog show. But we know that Barry has a dog. He's Lizzie's brother, remember. Barry, not the dog. The dog sits up. The dog lies down. The dog rolls over, stands on its hind legs, puts on a costume, puts on a hula skirt, a lei, and puts flowers on its ears, does a dance, does a hula dance. And Mike's comment on this, it's a good act. The dog stands up on its hind legs, wears a costume, and does like an authentic hula dance while Barry, who we've not known to be a very talented cub in the past, whips out a ukulele, an ukulele, plays along with the dog doing the dance. I don't understand where this talent came from. I don't understand if this dog possesses a hint of anthropomorphism. I don't know what's going on in Bear Country. I don't know what's going on in Bear City or Bear Town. I don't know what's going on at the Bear Country School. I'm furious and terrified. I am up in arms at this development, Mike. I don't know what you've done. I don't know what you're doing here. What are you saying? Can dogs do this now in Beartown? I don't know. You've opened up a can of worms, my boy. You've opened up a can of worms. But Barry Bruin can play the ukulele. We're very proud of him. Okay, now it's time for our history lesson. You guys ready for a history lesson? Because I'm going to teach you. History lesson in Bear Country. History lesson in Beartown. Let's talk for a little bit. Let's talk just a little bit about a thing that I like to call, because that's what it's called. Where is it? I have my notes. Yodeling. Let's talk about yodeling. What is yodeling? I mean, I know in your mind you're thinking, I know what yodeling is, Phil. Yodelay, yodelay, yodelay. And to a degree, that is yodeling. But yodeling goes way back. It goes back so far we don't actually know its origins. Can you believe it? Can you buy it? Do you believe a word I'm saying? Of course you do. Yodeling is a form of alpine folk music that goes like way back. I mean, it was an oral, it's singing, so of course it's an oral tradition. But it's an oral tradition that goes back, like we've traced it back to the 1400s. It's from a German term, which is yodeling. I guess it's just called yodeling. I love this fact. The German word yodeln, I don't know how you pronounce it, means to utter the syllable yo, which is great. Like, what does yodeling mean? It means you're saying yo. It means you're saying yo over and over again. Yo, 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 yo. But that's not yodeling, because it also involves switching from your chest voice, this is my chest voice, to your head voice or your falsetto voice. Now, I was trained in singing. I grew up learning that your head voice and your falsetto were two separate things. They're not actually the same thing. But for this, we're just saying you can go into your head voice or your falsetto voice. So you would be singing like this, and then you would switch to this, right? Like I'm up in my head voice. But you would do it like fluidly. So you wouldn't, but not like scooping into it. You wouldn't be like, now I'm singing. Like you wouldn't do that. It's like you flip into one or the other. But better than that. I'm just trying to give you an example of what yodeling is. It's more fluid. Like there's a burbling sound to it. You've heard yodeling. It's going up and down from your chest voice to your head voice, quickly, delightfully, I guess. I don't know. It was a way that they think it was a way of communicating in the Alps between mountains. Like it's a really good way of like calling to another person. It's loud, it's resonant, it's distinctive. You know it's not a person just screaming for help. It's a way of signaling another person, but also it's a form of music. So it was like, yeah, like they say, it's a multi-pitched form of yelling. The earliest record of a yodel, 1545, where it is described as the call of a cowherd from Appenzell, which is a canton in the northeast of Switzerland. I don't know what that means. Quote, from its earliest entry in European music of whatever type, the yodel tended to be associated with nature, instinct, wilderness, pre-industrial and pastoral civilization, or similar ideas. It continues to be associated with rural and folk musics, or Volk music, or to connote those in other contexts. Because of this original folk connection, yodeling remained associated with the outdoors, with rustic rather than sophisticated personae, and with particular emotional or psychological states or semantic fields. That is from music historian Timothy Wise, from the mountains to the prairies and beyond the pale, American yodeling on early recordings. Right, because yodeling came to America by way of our alpine ancestors. It was very popular in Appalachia, and it became part of early American country music known as hillbilly music, or blue yodeling, popularized, not originated by, but popularized by American singer-songwriter Jimmy Rogers in his Blue Yodels. So there was Blue Yodel #1, also known as T for Texas, and you've undoubtedly heard either this music or songs inspired by this music or influenced by this music. Johnny Cash among them. And you'll recognize the blue yodels because they tend to have like they are blues influenced. So they borrow from blues. They borrow floating lyrics from blues music. And the way he structured it is, so he heard he says his story is that he heard a bunch of Swedish people traveling around doing yodeling at like tent revivals and stuff. And he was impressed by it. He used it more as filler music, like sort of transitional music between verses. So he'd sing a verse like ba-da 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 ba-da. I'm not going to sing his song. And then in between the verses, which are very blues influenced verses, he would go like yodelay, like that kind of thing. And you've like, oh yeah, I recognize that. So that was American yodeling. Got super popular. Got so popular that if you were a country singer in America in like the 30s, 40s, into the 50s, you had to have yodeling in there. You had to have this sort of filler yodeling. But this is not alpine yodeling. Alpine yodeling is like a whole other ball of wax. That's sort of like, hey, yodel, where it's very much what the music is. Why am I talking about this? Like, why am I even bringing this up? Like, what's the point of it? Like, why do you care? Because Susie gets up on stage. Susie gets up on stage, opens her mouth. She opens it very wide. Then Susie starts to yodel. Now, we all know Susie. She's the friend who showed up in the early books of the 21st century religious books that Mike did. She has glasses. She has pigtails. Bit of a nerd. Bit of a weirdo, but we love her because she's a weird nerd. And Sister becomes friends with her. She's got a lot of personality. I like Susie. She opens her mouth, she starts to yodel. She yodels high. She's like standing on her tiptoes, screaming yodels. Hey, she yodels low. She gets way down on her stomach, and she's like, she goes up into the balcony, which I didn't even know existed in Bear Country School. There is a box seat. She's up there. She goes down on the stage. She's gripping the curtain. She's yodeling her heart out. Remember what they said about yodeling being an expression of emotion, right? A psychological state. Susie has entered a fugue. She's in a fugue state. Like, she does not know where she is anymore. She has entered the state of yo. She has entered the Germanic origin, the psychological state, the emotional state of yo. She's yoing. She is forming the syllable yo and expressing it in her chest voice, in her head voice. She's yodeling all over the place. The Cubs go nuts. This is beyond Too Tall getting up in front of them and being like, I can sing. This is beyond his rap group. He's out there with Scuzz and Vinny, Smirk, one of them, just rapping their hearts out. Rippity rap, they're saying. Rap, rap, rappity rap. They're rapping so much. And then Susie gets up there and she's like, listen, my Uncle Otto, who was an Alpine villager, according to the illustration we see, he's got one of those like Phrygian hats, whatever you call them. Like, he's got lederhosen. He's up on an Alp, yodeling his heart out. My Uncle Otto taught me, we don't get any other history here. We don't know, did Susie go and stay in the Alpine regions of a bear world? We don't know. Did he come to America and teach her? Was it a correspondence course? We don't know, and we will never know. But my Uncle Otto taught me. We know that Susie has an Uncle Otto now. Did he have a truck? We don't know. But he taught her how to yodel. It's amazing. So this reminds me of like you have a weird talent. You have an unusual talent that is genuinely considered an off-putting talent. Yodeling, hey, guess what? Becomes kind of a punchline. Knock, knock, who's there? Little old lady. Little old lady who? I didn't know you could yodel. Comes a bit of a punchline. However, it's one of those things where you do something that's odd, off-putting, or unusual, but you do it really well, people can't help but be impressed, right? Like bagpipe. Bagpipes get a bad rap. Accordion gets a bad rap. But you hear someone who's super good at it, whip it out, and pull it off. That came out wrong. Someone whips out their accordion, tears through a song that you love, does a really good job at accordion. You're like, okay, this is really good. Someone who's like super good at bagpipes. Star Trek 2, the bagpipes come out. You cry, you start weeping, even though you're like, if this was in my bedroom, I'd be annoyed. This guy's really good at the pipes. You can't help but be impressed. All the Cubs clap. My Uncle Otto taught me. And then there's some more Cubs. And these are talents that we sort of saw in the previous book. Well, pogo sticking, no. I guess there's the Cub who's pogo sticking is wearing a whoopee cap, so that's got to be Scuzz or Smirk, I guess. But he's also not dressed like Scuzz or Smirk. So I don't know. Maybe whoopee caps have caught on again. We have a Cub juggling in gray sweats. We have a Cub hula hooping. We have a Cub doing karate, which, to be fair, we saw a Cub chopping karate boards in the previous book. So karate's still a thing. wearing their gi. Looks like they're a green belt. We have enough talents. Or, so what Teacher Jane says is, we have talents enough now. It's interesting that Mike didn't say, we have enough talents now, or that's a good amount of talents, or something. Instead, he phrases it, we have talents, comma, enough, comma, now, says Teacher Jane. Our talent show is ready. But it read to me when I first read it. I had to actually reread it a couple of times. It reads to me like Teacher Jane says, we have talents, enough now. Like she's saying this to the Cubs who are juggling and pogo sticking. She's like, enough. Off the stage, we're ready. The show is on the very next day. She cast this show, and it's going up the next day. A, didn't give the Cubs a lot of time to practice. B, didn't give the parents a lot of time to, like, make sure they had the evening off, I guess. Is it during the evening? We don't know. Talent show. All I know is all of Beartown turns out. The Cubs are peeking out from behind stage. Unprofessional Cubs. Okay, and they're peeking out from center stage. Like, they're pulling the curtains aside. And they're like, whoa, don't do that. I know you want to. You think it's charming. It's not charming. It's never charming. Sight lines. If you can see them, finish my phrase, they can see you. Right. Don't peek out the curtains. If you want to know how big the crowd is, ask the stage manager. Mama and Papa are in the front row. I see 2-Ton Grizzly out there with his hat on. So everyone's out there coming to see the show. The curtain goes up. One after another, the Cubs go on. They have a lot of talent. We see a ventriloquist Cub, which we saw in the previous book. So I'm impressed. Mike, remember that. Also, like the previous book, the ventriloquist Cub has turned the head of the dummy to face They are holding the ventriloquist dummy in a way that I cannot figure out how they're actually manipulating the jaw. If anyone can help me out here. I mean, I suppose you can set the ventriloquist dummy. I guess you can do that. It's just the way the hand. It makes more sense in this illustration than it did in the previous book. So kudos to Mike for kind of making it work. We have a trumpeter, we have a skip roper, we have brother drumming, sister singing, a different Cub ballerining. I think my camera just took a picture. Did my camera just take a picture of me? It did this before, and I don't understand what it's doing. But my camera just. I think it has a setting where it'll take a picture if you smile at it. But I don't think that's what's happening. I'm going to try smiling. Hold on real quick. It's not working. It's not doing it. I don't know why my camera just took a picture of me, but it felt the need to. So if you get it, maybe it'll send it to somebody. I don't know. But the Cubs are all doing their thing. I really like these illustrations. Mike, kudos to you. I keep saying that. Mike, congratulations to you. This is a well-illustrated book. I really like it. It's cute. This is a cute book. And near the end, Barry's dog does his tricks. I got confused, not when I first read this book, but literally just now. Barry's down on the ground helping the dog roll, and for some reason I thought he had pinned the dog on the ground and was punching it. I don't know why. That would not happen in a Berenstain Bears book. My mind did something weird. I thought Barry was like, ugh. Like I thought he got mad at the dog or something. I don't know. That's not something. The book would go off in a different direction if that was the case. He has the dog stay. He has the dog turn. He has the dog jump through a hoop. This is amazing, by the way. We don't even see the hula dance. But we have to assume it happened. But then last of all, Susie gets up and yodels. She yodels up a storm. She's yodeling like crazy. We love it. Alpine, folk music, Uncle Otto's truck. She's yodeling, she's busting a gut, and the audience is going crazy for this. We've never seen this in Bear Country. Time to choose the best talent. Teacher Jane holds a hand over each Cub. Everyone claps, but they clap the loudest for Susie. Everyone likes yodeling. And this is why I think this book is a little bit brilliant. Clearly, this is Mike taking the whatever with the readers. Everyone, he gives himself away a bit with everyone likes yodeling, because not everyone likes yodeling. Mike knows this. He knows that the parents reading this are going to laugh because, again, the Berenstains, Stan, Jan, Mike. Maybe Leo, I don't know Leo. Stan, Jan, Mike. Very dry senses of humor, right? We know this. The Berenstain, the family history, dry sense of humor. Mike has inherited that from his parents. Everyone likes yodeling, right? I mean, come on. Everyone likes yodeling. I laughed. I laughed. I think this is a good book. I like this one a lot. All the talented cubs take a bow. The school talent show's a big hit, but we didn't even need this final page because everyone likes yodeling. Susie wins. She doesn't win. It doesn't look like she wins a prize. In the previous book, there was actually a golden cup given out. Also, we don't see the rap group. So maybe they weren't allowed. Maybe like during like the dress rehearsal. Where is it? Maybe during the dress rehearsal, the rap group was like, maybe they were swearing a bit. Like maybe they pulled out some blue material. Blue yodeling. Blue rapping is a different thing. Maybe they were talking about the blinks, the blanks and the bleeps. And Teacher Jane was like, we're done. We're done with you. Off the stage. Because they don't show up. They're not there. They don't take a bow. They're not there in the show. Too Tall, what did you do? What did he do? I guess we'll never know. But that was the Berenstain Bears school talent show. Get on. I didn't finish my story. So I said we were going to find out about some interesting stuff about some indigenous populations. So Jimmie Rodgers, Blue Yodel #1, T for Texas. He wrote all these blue yodeling songs. It wasn't the only blue yodel. He had a bunch of blue yodel recordings that he did. T for Texas, bunch of other ones. He recorded these like way back in the day. Like these were super cool. And they sold, I believe the original T for Texas sold 500,000 copies, which at the time was unheard of. So this is wild. So there's a group of people known as, I'm going to mispronounce this, the Kipsigis people, a Nilotic group contingent of the Kalenjin ethnic group who speak a dialect of the Kalenjin language identified by their community eponym Kipsigis. I don't know. They are a Kenyan culture. Phil, where are you going with this? Why are you telling us about these people as fascinating as they sound? They live in the Great Rift Valley of Kenya. So, during World War II, English Christian missionaries, boo, World War II English Christian missionaries, you can keep them, visited the Kipsigis tribe of the Great Rift Valley in Kenya. Are you listening? The missionaries took with them a wind-up gramophone, all right, and recordings of Jimmie Rodgers, right? And so they were like, get a load of this. Great. Hear that? You impressed? And then they took off out of there. Oh, they probably left some Bibles and crosses. 1950 rolls around. Hugh Tracy, he's this ethnomusicologist. He moves to the region because his brother's there on a tobacco farm. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure Hugh Tracy's brother was not doing anything nefarious. I'm sure colonization had nothing to do with this. But he's an ethnomusicologist. He brings a reel-to-reel device with him to make some field recordings of African traditional African songs. So in the town of Cap Katet, the district chief, Arap Sang, is like, oh, there's a guy here who wants to hear us singing some songs. Gets some groups together to sing songs that they didn't call, but Hugh Tracy would call the Chimirocha songs. Chimirocha 1, Chimirocha 2, Chimirocha 3, because that's how they were like that. They were singing about someone called Chimirocha. They had a stringed instrument called I'm going to mispronounce this, Kimbujanet, I don't know. And they sing the song about this character who they consider to be a half man or a half antelope, like a fawn, called Chimiracha. And it's only then that he realizes that Chimiracha is just not a corruption of, but like just sort of an evolution of the name Jimmie Rodgers. They took these recordings, they heard this guy singing, and they were like, this is amazing. Because this sort of reminds us of some of the folk stories we have, folk tales we have about a guy or a character who can like do crazy things with their voice. And so they wrote a bunch of songs that Hugh Tracy called the Chimirocha songs, sung by men and women. Chimirocha 1 and 2 were sung by men, and they expressed the Kipsigis love for their locale, their land, and lamenting it being taken over by colonists. Huh? And then the women's song, Chimichurri 3, was about how happy the music makes them and how it makes their clothes fall off. I don't know what that means or entails. I don't know what it means or entails. Probably shouldn't listen to those songs if they're making your clothes fall off. But also, like, they use the term chimichurri to describe just sort of like strange new things. Now, he referred to this as a cargo cult. It wasn't a cargo cult. They knew what they were doing. Like, they knew what the courting was. They knew that they were just hearing a new type of music. It reminded them of stuff in their own history, their own culture. But they took, so this Kenyan group, the Kipsigis tribe of Kenya, this great Rift Valley people, took a recording of a song written by an American, influenced by previous Appalachian music that was based on alpine traditions, based on alpine, like, voice calling, to create a whole new thing, a whole new style of music for themselves that then an ethnomusicologist heard and was like, well, this must be an old traditional song, but it's not. Like, and I bring it up. I think it's fascinating because we forget that groups, that what we think of as traditional music is actually forever evolving. It's actually not static. It's when you think like, what's your culture's traditional music? Even the traditional music you hear today, the traditional music, folk music, has evolved and changed over the years. And so, like, this ethnomusicologist, Hugh Tracy, was like, well, these poor souls, they must have been confused by the music they heard and thought it was some kind of god. And they were like, no, we knew it was a guy named Jimmy Rogers, but we've adapted it to our own language and our own beliefs and our own culture, and we've created new music based on it. And I think that's great. You can listen to some of the recordings, the Chimichurri songs. They're fascinating, and they don't sound like, they're not just imitating Jimmy Rogers. They sort of took the ululation of the voices and are like, and do their own things with it. Also, they've gone back and they interviewed. Let's see. In 2015, like decades later, they found one of the original singers of one of the recordings in Chimichurri 1. They saying like, yeah, we didn't know we were being recorded. Honestly, we just thought we were singing for a guy who wanted to hear us sing, which is kind of not cool. But they asked the villagers, like, what does chimichurri mean? And they're like, it's just time of music. It's nice. It's slow. It's good music. Obviously they knew that Jimmy Rogers was the original name, because like a Jimmy became referred to as a tough guy. And that Jimmy Rogers was, they sort of adopted it to mean like of a fawn or the son of their chief, and because the colonial government had mistreated them so poorly. So they sort of adopted this character as like the tough guy. Like this is the guy who can beat up the colonists. And I like that. I like that. Again, beliefs evolve, traditions evolve. They're not static. And then Susie came along and offered Bear Country, a form of music they were familiar with. It keeps going. Study history, ethnomusicology. It's an important field of study because you learn that there's no such thing as your culture does not freeze in its traditions. Your culture is not frozen in one place. When kids would have to come to school dressed in like traditional garb of your people, come dressed like your aunts, like come dressed. Phil, you're Mexican. Come dressed in traditional Mexican garb. What does that mean? Mexico is a huge country made up of many different states, of many different cultures, of many different backgrounds, who adopted many of the dress and the language and the styles and the cooking and the music sometimes of their colonizers, like of their conquerors, who they adapted what was there. That's the way that happens. They would want me to wear a sombrero and a serape, basically. That's not even like. That's you're thinking of like Mexican. My people, my grandmother's people weren't from the border area of Texas. They were from like of Texas and Mexico. They were from deeper in Mexico. Further, I could go into it, but I won't. I know where they're from. I'm not going to get into it. But in any case, there's no static cultures. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for listening. I really like this book. I really like the School Talent Show. It fits well with the previous talent show book. If you can get your hands on the previous book, it's a Cub Club book. It's hard to get your hands on. You got to buy it used. Pair it with this one. It's just they pair beautifully together. It's a wonderful thing. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for listening. You can catch this episode on YouTube if you want to watch it and see some of the pages of the book. If you want to watch me dance around, if you want to see me yodel, yodel-y-ODLY-OO. I'm amazing. I'm like an alpine yodeler. And otherwise, thank you so much for listening. We're started back up again. We started back up again with It's Del Toro Time. We've got an Ecstasy of Influence up on YouTube and on It's Del Toro Time. We covered the Albert Brooks movie, Defending Your Life. So check that out. It's on the same YouTube channel as this one. So if you're here, you're here. If you're not, go there. And I will see you all next time, deep in Bear Country. Yodel-ay.